Is the world, well, is it just declining?
Right.
Or maybe transforming? Or could it be something, deeper, something talked about in ancient texts?
That's a huge question, isn't it? And it's exactly what we're diving into today.
Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We've got this really fascinating, honestly pretty provocative collection of sources today.
Yeah, really provocative. They explore this concept called Kali Yuga.
Right, this idea from Hindu cosmology about an age of, moral decay, conflict.
Exactly. And the sources draw these surprising, sometimes unsettling links to, well, everything. Modern crises, societal problems.
And even, believe it or not, a really bold vision for a new future. It's quite a mix.
It really is. So our mission today, we're going to unpack what these sources say about Kali Yuga itself, its characteristics.
Right.
We'll look at who or what are seen as the enemies blocking progress in this view.
Enemies.
And we'll examine the signs that supposedly point to these end times being here right now.
Signs like what we see happening globally.
Precisely. And we'll get into this figure, Lord Kalki. Destroyer, liberator. It's complex.
And then there's that vision for a nation's future you mentioned, directly linked to all this spiritual stuff.
Yes, a very specific, very ambitious plan. We'll delve right into it.
And the sources themselves are super diverse, right? We're talking critiques of religious hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Some quite satirical, actually.
Oh, yeah, some really sharp, almost funny critiques. But also deep dives into ancient prophecies.
Right, and even concrete proposals for economic change, like actual policy ideas.
Absolutely. So the goal, as always, is to pull out the key insights for you, give you that shortcut to understanding these complex, sometimes controversial ideas.
You get the important bits without wading through everything yourself. So let's get started. All right, let's start with the basics. For anyone maybe not familiar, Kali Yuga. What is it, fundamentally? It sounds like more than just a rough patch in history.
Yeah, it's definitely presented as more profound than that. At its core, it's a Hindu concept describing an age of, well, deep moral and spiritual decline.
Decline.
The sources describe it pretty intensely, like a time where truth is inverted and lies are paraded as tradition.
Wow. So right is wrong, wrong is right, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Imagine the very foundations of ethics, of spiritual understanding just getting twisted. It's seen as this pervasive decay affecting everything. Personal integrity, global politics, everything.
And a key sign of this age, the sources say, is that moral decay itself, this inversion of values.
Precisely. One author we're looking at, Jay Saw, argues that truth, dharma, which is like righteousness or duty and just basic morality, are vanishing.
Vanishing. Replaced by what?
Replaced by, well, lust, greed, division, the baser instincts taking over. He even suggests this isn't just a Hindu idea, but echoes prophecies in other major faiths too, like a universal pattern.
Okay, that's a big claim. What kind of specifics do the sources offer to back that up? Saying morality is disappearing. That's huge.
Well, it's interesting how they connect modern trends to this idea. They're presented not just as changes, but as symptoms of this deeper decay, this truth inverted of Kali Yuga.
Symptoms like what?
Like religious disaffiliation. They cite a 2025 Gallup report showing 20% of U.S. adults are now religiously unaffiliated.
20%. That's 1 in 5.
Right. And the sources frame this not just as a choice, but as a disengagement from traditional moral frameworks that historically grounded society.
That definitely points to a big cultural shift, maybe leaving a kind of vacuum where values used to be.
Exactly. And beyond religion, they point to other cultural shifts, things like hookup culture,
Okay.
prioritizing immediate gratification over commitment, traditional family ideas, or think about social media ethics debates.
Oh, yeah, that's a minefield. Privacy, misinformation.
Right. Cyberbullying, surveillance. These aren't just tech issues in this view. They're framed as eroding values, where individual desire trumps collective well-being or ethics.
And it's not just personal stuff, right? It's also about trust in institutions. I remember that was a big point.
Absolutely crucial. They reference Pew data from 2024 showing trust plummeting globally. Trust in media, government, even science.
That feels very real right now.
Doesn't it? And this erosion of faith in these pillars is seen as a hallmark of Kali Yuga. When you can't even agree on basic facts, how do you solve problems together?
You can't really. It makes cooperation almost impossible.
Right. Which leads to the big question these sources pose, is this decline just cyclical? Something humans go through? Or is this time different? Is it signaling a real epochal shift like the prophecies suggest?
That's the key, isn't it? Because every generation feels like the world's falling apart. But what if this time is different?
Exactly.
And speaking of the world falling apart, Jay Sa takes it further. He claims we're already in a planetary war. Compares it to the Mahabharata. That's a
Yeah.
dramatic comparison.
It's incredibly dramatic. The Mahabharata is this epic foundational story of a massive destructive war. So, to equate our current situation with that, it's a very strong statement.
How does he justify that?
Mm.
What conflicts are being framed as part of this global Mahabharata?
He points to concrete examples. It's not just metaphorical for him. The sources list things like the ongoing war in Ukraine, raging since 2022, massive human cost, nuclear fears.
Yeah, that's constantly in the headlines.
Then there's the Israel-Gaza-Iran situation, which really blew up after the 2023 Hamas attack. Tens of thousands dead, regional instability, global impact.
And Sudan.
Yeah.
I know the situation there is horrific, even if it gets less coverage.
You're right to mention Sudan. The sources highlight it specifically. Over 10 million displaced by 2025. Brutal civil war, famine, ethnic violence. Truly devastating.
It's overwhelming just listing them.
It is. And beyond these hot wars, there are the simmering tensions. The Indo-Pacific, with China's actions around Taiwan, the South China Sea, India's border issues with Pakistan and China.
So it's not isolated fires, but interconnected conflicts from this perspective.
That's how it's presented. Not separate incidents, but interconnected battles in a larger planetary war.
And then there's the doomsday clock mention. 90 seconds to midnight in 2025. The closest ever. That certainly adds to the end times feeling for many.
It absolutely feeds into that narrative. But here's the crucial distinction the sources make.
Okay.
Is this just geopolitics? Power struggles, resource fights, clashing ideologies? That's the secular view. Grim, maybe predictable human behavior.
Right, the standard analysis.
But the spiritual interpretation, Sa's view, sees it differently. Not just human actions, but divinely orchestrated. An epoch-ending battle, a literal global Mahabharata unfolding as prophesied.
Wow. So same events, two completely different ways of understanding them.
Exactly. And it's vital for you, listening, to hold both possibilities.
Right.
Are we seeing predictable power politics, or is something larger, more cosmic at play? The sources argue for the latter.
That really changes how you might see the world, doesn't it? Okay, so besides war, the sources also link economic and health crises to these end times signs. Environment first. Sa sees things like melting glaciers, those weird desert floods in Saudi Arabia, wildfires, not just as climate change, but as divine warnings.
Yes, a really stark contrast to the scientific consensus. While science points overwhelmingly to human activity, anthropogenic climate change, carbon emissions, deforestation.
Like NOAA confirming 2024 is the warmest year on record.
Precisely. That's the scientific explanation. But Sa frames these disasters as spiritual omens, messages from a higher power.
So it puts the responsibility or the meaning in a totally different place.
It does, which raises a really important question for all of us. How do we balance these spiritual interpretations with the need for scientific solutions? Are they mutually exclusive, or can they coexist somehow in how we respond?
That's a deep question, because the impact is real either way. Divine warning or climate crisis, the planet is suffering.
Undeniably. And then the sources shift to health crises. They call them silent pandemics, suggesting COVID was just the start.
Silent pandemics. What are these bigger threats they're warning about?
Two main ones. First, maybe the scariest, is antibiotic resistance.
Oh, I've heard about this. Superbugs.
Exactly. The WHO predicts 10 million deaths a year by 2050 from this. Common infections becoming deadly again, like going back in time before antibiotics. It's a massive threat to modern medicine.
10 million a year. That's horrifying.
It is. And the second threat is emerging pathogens. New viruses, like the 2024 mpox outbreak. It's presented as a sign of increasing vulnerability, fragile health systems. Not just health issues, but signs of Kali Yuga weakening human resilience itself.
Wow. Antibiotic failure, new diseases. It paints a bleak picture of vulnerability. And then there's the economy. Instability is another sign, with specific worries about things like digital currencies.
Yes, economic instability is another key sign highlighted. They point to recent banking crises. Remember Silicon Valley Bank collapsing in 2023?
Yeah, that sends shockwaves.
Right. And persistent inflation eroding everyone's money. The global average hit 9% in 2023. But the really provocative part is about central bank digital currencies, CBDCs.
Yeah, CBDCs. They're presented as digital chains. That sounds ominous.
It's a very strong term. The concern isn't just about modernizing money, it's the potential for control. Digital slavery, the sources call it.
Slavery?
Yeah.
How? Are there examples of these being rolled out?
Well, the sources mentioned China and the EU are already pushing ahead with pilot programs, moving fast.
Okay.
So the discussion becomes about the dual nature of this tech. Yes, it could be efficient, transparent, but it could also give governments unprecedented control. Surveillance, freezing accounts.
Depending on who's in charge and how it's set up.
Exactly. It depends entirely on governance. And the sources argue that in Kali Yuga, even technological progress can hide a threat, a tool for control rather than liberation.
Okay, moving into some really sharp social critique now.
Yeah.
This section is titled The Grand Lie of Brahmanism. That sounds like it's going to challenge some things. What exactly is this grand lie?
Right, let's unpack this carefully because the sources are incredibly direct here. They start by laying out the traditional Vedic guidelines for Brahmins, very clear rules.
Like what?
Like, do not eat meat, do not drink alcohol, do not smoke or consume intoxicants. The sources stress that the Vedas define true Brahmanhood by this rigorous life of purity, discipline, adherence to these principles.
So it's about how you live, your conduct, not just who your parents were.
Precisely. It's presented as earned through discipline, not just inherited. But then the sources launch this scathing critique. They argue that in Kali Yuga, many who call themselves Brahmins today completely ignore these rules.
How do they illustrate that?
With these really vivid, almost satirical examples.
Right.
To highlight the hypocrisy as they see it, it's not subtle.
I remember reading some of those descriptions.
Yeah.
Chicken wing Brahmins of Kali Yuga.
Yeah.
Those images really stick with you because the contrast is so jarring.
Exactly. They paint this picture. Brahmins polishing off chicken and fish, sipping whiskey at weddings, puffing away on cigarettes.
Right.
They talk about seeing holy men with beer bellies and Marlboro packs. Or they give these nicknames like whiskey priest, tobacco sage, buffet Brahmin, who's apparently first in line for the mutton curry.
Wow. It's using humor, almost, but to make a very serious point about the disconnect between the ideal and the reality.
Absolutely. The satire is meant to make the perceived hypocrisy undeniable.
And those mock headlines from the Kali Yuga Times, those are something else. Really biting.
Oh, yeah. Designed to shock and satirize, like Sacred Thread sponsors chicken wing eating contest, or Brahmin Whiskey Festival draws record crowds.
It sounds absurd.
It's meant to. Or puja interrupted after priest asks for smoke break. Just imagine that. Or the fake DNA test. 90% of Brahmins actually butter chicken.
Okay, that one's pretty funny but sharp.
Right. Or the WhatsApp group voting for mutton because paneer is too sattvic, too pure for them now. It's aggressive satire hammering home this perceived betrayal of Vedic principles.
So if true Brahmanhood is about this discipline, these principles,
Yeah.
what is the grand lie they're attacking?
The core argument, the grand lie, is stated very clearly. The belief that Brahmanhood is by birth.
Ah, okay, that's the crux of it.
Yes. The sources argue vehemently. True Brahmanhood is earned by discipline. By actually living according to Vedic rules, the purity, the lifestyle, not just inherited.
So being born Brahmin but not living the life makes the title.
A hollow label, according to them, a masquerade. They even call it identity theft. Inheriting the title without the conduct is seen as deceptive, diluting the whole meaning.
But interestingly, the critique doesn't stop there. The sources say true Brahmanhood is actually open source, accessible to anyone. That's quite a twist.
It's a really crucial, almost radical point. They extend this open invitation. True Brahmanhood, they say, is available to anyone who sincerely follows the core principles. No meat, no alcohol, no tobacco.
Regardless of birth.
Regardless of birth, it completely redefines it. Birth doesn't sanctify, behavior and discipline do. It's not about abolishing the idea, but reclaiming its authentic meaning based on action, not lineage.
So this isn't just about one group. It's a bigger challenge to inherited status versus earned merit, right? What does that mean for you listening to this?
Exactly. It pushes you to think, doesn't it? Where do we place value? On labels, titles, birthright, or on actual conduct, integrity, discipline? It's a universal question, way beyond this specific context.
It makes you question assumptions about authority and authenticity everywhere.
It really does. Who do you trust? Why? Is it based on their title or their actions? It's a call for substance over surface.
Okay, so beyond this specific critique, the sources then introduce a broader concept, the three faces of Kali. What are these, and how are they presented as holding back equality and justice, particularly in India?
This is another really bold claim. The sources identify Brahmanism, capitalism, specifically linked to Marwari control, and Militant Islamism as these three distinct faces of Kali.
Wow. Okay, that's a very specific and potentially controversial grouping.
Extremely. And presented as forces that have historically suppressed equality and justice in India. Again, it's vital we just relay their perspective here, not endorse it.
Understood. They mention these groups originating from dry desert regions. What's the significance of that, according to the sources?
They suggest this origin shaped a specific mindset. Coming from harsh environments, they allegedly saw themselves as natural owners of power and resources.
Implying a drive to dominate.
That's the implication, that this led them to push local communities into subservient roles, believing rulership belonged to them. It paints a picture of inherent expansionism.
And how did this unfold historically, in their view? What power dynamics are described?
The sources describe a long history of war and bloodshed. They claim religion was used strategically to prevent equality, to maintain hierarchies.
How so?
They argue learned individuals who might challenge the system were kept dependent, maybe seeking alms, effectively blocking them from real power. Then, with trade, Marwari networks supposedly seized economic control, consolidating wealth.
And the third phase, Militant Islamism.
Muslim empires, through conquest and rule, are seen as cementing the system of submission for the general population. So these three forces, Brahmanism, Marwari capitalism, militant Islamism, converged in this view to keep the majority subjugated.
But the sources also say modern times democracy, education have started to shake this up. There's resistance now.
Definitely. They acknowledge huge shifts, democracy, widespread education, and especially the rise of Dalit and backward communities over the last 50 years. These have seriously challenged those old power structures. But the sources argue the underlying mindset, that desire to retain power and privilege among these groups, persists. The battle continues, even within a democratic framework. It's about ingrained attitudes.
So the fight isn't against specific castes or religions per se, but these oppressive mindsets.
Exactly. The source is clear. It's a struggle against mindsets suppressing equality and justice, not an attack on groups of people.
And what about the People's Manifesto mentioned? What are those calls to action? They sound quite revolutionary.
They are presented as very revolutionary. The manifesto, quoted in the sources, urges, break the chains of caste, break the web of capital, end the violence hidden in the guise of religion.
Wow. Strong words.
Very. And it concludes, equality and justice are the new religion. It's a call for a complete societal reset, dismantling old structures, replacing them with a new ethic of universal justice.
That's a very forceful vision. And again, just to reiterate for everyone listening, we're presenting these views as they appear in the source material. Our aim is to help you understand these perspectives, not to take sides or validate the claims. It's about conveying the ideas themselves. Okay, shifting gears now from societal critique back to the cosmic, the sources talk a lot about the arrival of Lord Kalki, the final avatar of Vishnu. For anyone new to this, what's the traditional prophecy about Kalki?
Traditionally, Lord Kalki is prophesied to appear right at the peak of Kali Yuga's darkness, when things are at their absolute worst.
And his purpose?
To destroy evil, cleanse the world of corruption, and restore dharma, righteousness. He's usually depicted as this a powerful warrior on a white horse wielding a blazing sword. You see this in texts like the Vishnu Purana, Bhagavata Purana.
The ultimate divine cleanup crew, basically. Signaling the end of this dark age and the start of a new golden age, the Satya Yuga.
That's the traditional view, the final, decisive intervention.
But Jay-Sa again offers a different take, right? A more provocative one. He talks about Kalki, or maybe an antichrist-like figure, as a divine disruptor, a Krishna-like liberator. That sounds contradictory. Redeemer and disruptor.
It does sound paradoxical, doesn't it? But Sa's interpretation is really interesting here. He suggests this figure won't just fix things nicely, he'll dismantle corrupt systems.
Right.
And because of that, he'll actually be hated by global elites.
Hated? Why hated if he's a liberator?
Because he challenges their power. He liberates by disrupting the status quo. Sa even draws parallels to figures like Julian Assange or other whistleblowers.
Assange. How does he fit the Kalki archetype?
By exposing uncomfortable truths, revealing secrets of the powerful, actions that cause huge disruption, anger the establishment, but arguably liberate information, maybe even consciousness.
That's a fascinating, almost subversive idea. A liberator seen as a villain by those in power. It makes you think, doesn't it? How one figure can be a hero to some, a threat to others, all depending on your perspective or where you stand.
Absolutely. Revolutionary figures often blur those lines. It suggests Kalki's arrival might be less about universal celebration and more about forcing a major, possibly painful, realignment of values.
Okay, now for one of the most detailed, maybe granular parts of this, decoding Kalki's birthplace. The sources argue strongly that Sambal isn't just a village, but a desh, a kingdom, and that all evidence points to Nepal. That contradicts common beliefs.
It does. This is a central, meticulously argued claim in one of the sources, that Sambal, the prophesied birthplace, is an ancient desh, a sovereign land, a country not the small village often assumed today.
And Nepal is that desh.
That's their assertion, based on what they call every shred of evidence. It hinges on a very precise reading of the original Sanskrit scriptures, especially the Kalki Purana.
Okay, so the specific Sanskrit words matter hugely here. Desh versus grama. Why is that distinction so vital?
It's critical for accuracy. The Kalki Purana in early chapters explicitly says Sambaldesh, not Sambalgan, which means village.
Ah,
The text says Kalki will be born in the land Desh of Shampala, in the village of Vishnuyasha. See? It's a two-tier system. Kingdom first, then a village within it. Like saying born in the country of England in the village of Stratford upon Avon.
That dual structure makes sense. Does this fit with how past avatars were identified? Was it typically by kingdom?
Yes, the sources argue it's totally consistent. Think of Sri Ram, born in Ayodhya, the capital of Awadh Desh, a major kingdom, or Sri Krishna in Mathura, part of Vrishni Desh.
So naming the kingdom first was standard practice back then?
Exactly. Ancient India was full of independent kingdoms, republics, janapadas, deshas. Naming the desh pinpointed the sovereign entity. It was logical.
So if the prophecy says desh, then those modern places called Sambal, like in UP or Odisha, they aren't it, according to this analysis.
Correct. The sources refute those claims quite strongly. Sambal in UP rose much later under the sultans and Mughals. Sambalpur in Odisha got its name even later.
So why the confusion?
They argue it's common for later rulers to reuse sacred names for prestige, like having multiple towns called Springfield. It creates confusion about the original site. This reuse, they say, led to misinterpreting the Kalki prophecy.
Which brings up divine concealment. Why hide the location or make it layered like this? Why not just name the village?
Good question. The sources explain prophecies often use symbolic hints or layers to prevent manipulation. If it was too obvious, anyone could rename their village and make false claims, causing chaos.
To prevent false Kalkis popping up everywhere.
Precisely. The Dairish plus hidden village structure protects the prophecy's integrity. It ensures the real place stays concealed until the right time. It's a divine authentication method.
Okay, so why Nepal? What are the specific divine clues pointing there as Sambaldesh? This is where it gets really specific.
The case for Nepal is presented as multi-layered. First, a phonetic echo. The al sound in Nepal is said to echo Samval, a Vedic tradition of hiding names in syllables.
Interesting, like a linguistic breadcrumb trail.
Sort of. Then, Nepal's profound spiritual history. It's the land of enlightenment, birthplace of Lord Buddha in Lumbini, and the land of bliss, birthplace of Goddess Sita in Janakpur. Already immensely sacred ground.
So it's not just a random place, it has deep spiritual roots and related traditions.
Exactly. Plus, it's geographic sacred geometry. The country's outline supposedly resembles an 8-petal lotus, a key symbol in Tantra, and it has 8 peaks over 8,000 meters, reinforcing this sacred number imagery.
Wow, the shape of the country itself.
That's the claim. Also, Nepal's history as one of the world's oldest independent states. It was never colonized or rebranded, preserving its ancient identity. And its location as a borderland kingdom between India and Tibet-China fits scriptural hints of a frontier location.
Okay, that's a lot of converging points. Phonetics, spiritual history, geography, political history.
It's presented as a compelling tapestry of evidence pointing to Nepal as the Desh.
So the big takeaway, Nepal is Sambal Desh, the kingdom. But the specific village within Nepal where Kalki will be born remains hidden.
That's the crucial point. The exact micro-location is still concealed, waiting for its destined time. This whole analysis challenges conventional views and asks you to reconsider how prophecies might be encoded.
It's a fascinating reinterpretation. Okay, beyond Kalki's birth, Jay-Saw lists other signs of the end times, his 11 reasons. What kind of things are included there? It seems like a mix of cosmic and earthly events.
It's a really broad mix. On the cosmic side, he points to things like blood moons, those lunar eclipse tetrads in 2024-2025. Some religious groups, especially Christians, link these to biblical prophecy, like Joel 2.31.
Right, the moon turning to blood.
He also mentions greener Arabia, citing Saudi Arabia's big greening projects as fulfilling prophecies about deserts blooming. And the Earth's magnetic shift, the poles drifting. While scientists say a full flip isn't imminent, it's seen by some as a sign of instability.
Large-scale planetary changes interpreted prophetically. But there was one sign that seemed much more tangible, almost politically explosive. The red heifer ritual.
Yes, the red heifer. This one is presented as potentially moving from symbol to reality with immediate impact. It's quite specific. 5 perfect red heifers imported from Texas to Israel in 2022. Then a symbolic burning in Samaria planned for 2025.
And this ritual is hugely significant in Judaism and Christianity.
Hugely. In Jewish tradition, the ashes are needed for purification rites to rebuild the temple. The 10th red heifer signals the Messiah's arrival and the third temple. In some Christian views, it precedes the Antichrist and tribulation.
So the geopolitical implications are massive, especially around the Temple Mount.
Immense and incredibly volatile. The sources directly suggest this ritual could ignite flashpoints. They even speculate that Hamas's 2023 attack might have been partly motivated by fears related to the red heifer and potential temple reconstruction.
Wow. Connecting ancient prophecy directly to modern conflict motivations, that's chilling.
It is, and beyond these events, Saw also interprets things like rising suicide rates, the global mental health crisis, 1 in 8 people affected genocide, famine like in Sudan. He sees these not just as tragedies, but as karmic judgment.
So human suffering itself is read as a sign, a consequence.
Yes, not random misfortune, but the unfolding consequences of past collective actions. Divine accountability in real time. It forces you to consider, are these just unrelated crises or part of a larger connected narrative of decline and maybe eventual renewal? The sources definitely push that latter view.
Okay, so after all this talk of decline, conflict, Kali Yuga, the sources don't just leave us there. They pivot to a vision of transformation, specifically for Nepal. Let's start with Nepal's current situation. What's the core challenge this vision addresses?
The sources paint a really tough picture of Nepal's economy. They call it a remittance economy.
Meaning dependent on money sent home by workers abroad.
Exactly. They state that more than 1 in every 3 working-age Nepalese lives and works outside the country. And crucially, not out of choice, but out of necessity.
1 in 3, that's staggering.
It is. Remittances keep families afloat, but it shows this deep dependency. That the country is essentially trading in its own people, losing its best and brightest because there aren't enough good jobs at home, a huge loss of potential and dignity.
A truly difficult situation. But there's this vision to change it. From the Kalkiism Research Center, what future do they propose?
They propose something incredibly ambitious. Based on what they call groundbreaking research, they offer a path for Nepal to break free.
Break free how? What's the vision?
The vision includes achieving 20% annual economic growth, which is almost unheard of.
20%, okay.
Developing a thriving knowledge economy based on innovation, intellect, and ultimately Nepal becoming a Vishwaguru, a teacher to the world, a leader in wisdom and governance.
A global teacher. That connects back to the spiritual side, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just about money. It's positioned as Nepal leading the way into a new age.
And the ultimate goal, linking back to Kali Yuga, is it just about fixing the economy?
Far beyond that. The ultimate aim stated by the Kalkiism Research Center is ending this Kali Yuga and ushering in the Satya Yuga.
Ending Kali Yuga. How?
By creating a moneyless society built on abundance, equality, and dignity. A truly utopian vision where basic needs are met without money, fostering real equity.
A moneyless society. Wow, that's radical. What's the first step towards that?
The immediate foundational step they propose is moving to a completely cashless society.
Okay, 20% growth, moneyless society. These are huge goals.
Okay.
The center proposes 3 radical reforms to start this. What are they?
3 core reforms designed to fundamentally reshape things. First, that cashless economy. Digitize all transactions. No physical cash.
Why cashless? Efficiency, transparency.
All of that. Plus universal access to finance, and they argue it eliminates cash-based corruption. Second, all banks publicly owned.
Government takes over all banks.
Every single one. The idea is to align banking with national priorities, serving the public good, not private profit.
Okay, centralized finance. And the third one, zero interest. That sounds revolutionary.
It is. Zero interest banking. Eliminating interest rates entirely, on loans, on savings, everything.
How would that even work? And what's the supposed benefit?
They argue it would unlock capital massively. Without interest burdens, money flows freely for investment without creating debt cycles.
And where would this unlocked capital go?
Directly into providing free, high-quality education, healthcare, and legal services for every citizen. They believe these 3 reforms together build the strongest infrastructure for a knowledge economy in the world.
Free education, healthcare, legal aid for everyone, funded by zero interest banking. It's a radical model. But that 20% growth target, China couldn't sustain that. India's lower developed countries are at like 2%. How's that possible for Nepal?
Great question. The sources tackle this skepticism directly. They admit it sounds almost impossible now.
Right.
But they argue Nepal has a unique advantage because it's not already a massive industrial economy. It can leapfrog directly to a knowledge economy.
Leapfrog.
By adopting cutting-edge tech and new models without being stuck with old industries or infrastructure. It's about agility, being able to pivot quickly.
So its current state is actually an advantage for this kind of radical change.
That's the argument. This leap would be powered by the radical reforms, the expertise of the Nepali diaspora, those non-resident Nepalis, NRNs returning with global skills, and the collective will of the people.
A national movement, not just policy.
Exactly. And this revolution, they claim, creates an explosion of private sector job creation fueled by this newly available domestic capital. So now this can build futures at home, not abroad. A complete reversal of the brain drain.
Which brings us right to the NRN movement, the diaspora. Their role shifts completely here, doesn't it? From remittance senders to architects.
Precisely. Those who left for opportunity are now called to return not as workers, but as architects of a new Nepal.
What's the specific call to action for them?
To throw its full weight behind the Kalkiism Research Center's vision, it's framed as crucial a matter of dignity, sovereignty, and a future where no Nepali is forced to leave for survival, an appeal to national pride and responsibility.
And if they succeed, what's the bigger picture beyond Nepal?
The vision is for Nepal to become a beacon, to show the world, especially the global south, how even the smallest nations can chart bold, independent paths to prosperity, proving transformation is possible through radical, self-driven change.
A model for others.
Yes, and the sources end with a direct challenge to the diaspora. Will the NRN movement rise to the occasion and help give Nepal the new birth it so urgently needs? It puts the onus on them to embrace this vision.
Wow. We have covered so much ground. From Kali Yuga's ancient concept and its modern echoes in war, decay, and crisis.
To the really sharp critiques of Brahmanism, the grand lie, the three faces of Kali.
Then into the Kalki prophecies, the detailed argument for Nepal as Sambaldesh.
And finally, this incredibly bold, almost utopian vision for Nepal's transformation, aiming to end Kali Yuga itself.
What strikes me is how these sources, though rooted in specific traditions, raise such universal questions about truth, morality, leadership, our collective future. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How do these ideas affect how you see the world right now?
Are we in end times? Or maybe a time of potential rebirth? And if things are shifting, if transformative figures or movements are challenging the old ways, what's your role?
Yeah, how does that idea of discipline over birthright or action over fatalism play out? Not just out there, but in your own life, your own community.
It's a lot to ponder, a call to look deeper perhaps at the patterns around us and our own place within them.